Hello and welcome everyone to another amazing episode of my philosophy book, the amazing book I have that contains every philosophy known to man and more. Where did I get it? Well, the other day I actually got it in Tesco. I went shopping in Tesco, but as everyone listening knows, as you know, there's a quarantine on, so I had to wait in the queue. And one thing I noticed while I was waiting in the queue was I was looking at everyone, and if I was to say the term zombie, an image comes to mind of, kind of dead-eyed, kind of slowly moving towards you, flesh hanging from their bones, that kind of image of like Hollywood zombie. But what if I told you zombies aren't like that? They're actually almost impossible to notice. They look like me and you, they sound like me and you, they act like me and you. If you went up to a zombie, if I went one of these people in the Tesco queue and kick them in the leg, they would cry out in pain. They'd say, "Ow!" But do they actually feel pain? They don't feel pain. They don't think about it. They just react to it the way that is familiar to us. So this got me thinking about other minds. Do people have other minds? And this being such a big topic, and because it is directly involving other minds, I thought it would only be appropriate to bring in another mind to it. So this week's special guest couldn't make it, but instead we have Liam.
What the hell? What the hell? Hello. That was such a warm welcome.
So Liam, is there anything you want to introduce about yourself? Like, who are you? What do you do?
So my name is Liam.
Yeah.
I say that I'm an actor.
Oh.
That's what I want to be, but in reality, I work in a toy shop. So,
No.
yes.
And what do you do in the toy shop?
I do magic. I do magic for kids. Yes.
So that's like performing.
It's a performance. It's a 9-hour performance per day.
Do you like your job?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
it's better than working in McDonald's, which is where I used to work, where I
Ah.
gained a lot of my life experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I work there now.
Would you say there was a lot of zombie people working in McDonald's?
I was a zombie person working
But-
in McDonald's. I don't know why, but I think in McDonald's you get the ability to turn off your brain after a while just to save it some power.
I actually, that's a funny point because I didn't even think of that. I kind of got like that as well because I too worked in the same McDonald's as Liam, and after a while, you have to stop caring. You have to stop thinking and feeling and become a zombie, because if you care, because I had other jobs where I cared. If someone was like, "My drink is wrong," I'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This could ruin your night. Here, let me fix that for you." But then people are just coming up so much, and like people are giving out, and like the stakes are always at like 10, like they're always
Yeah.
at 100. Like it's never like, "Oh, I think we're running out of fries. Could you maybe grab some?" It's like, "The fries are empty. Get the fries."
Yes,
And if you
yes.
commit yourself emotionally to that all the time, it's just exhausting.
It's self-conservation when you're in
Yeah.
there, because the amount of brain power needed, and also if you start finding those things as important as the people who are telling you they're that important
Yeah.
are, other things in your life will suddenly become less important, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just, you need to keep your priorities straight as
Yeah.
well, you know.
I can't remember who exactly it was, but there was a person in McDonald's that said, because they had the wrap of the days, and a customer came up and they're like, "What's the wrap of the day today?" And I was kind of new, so I was like, "Oh, person next to me, what's the wrap of the day?" And they were like, they just turned around and looked at the sign, and they were like, "The day I learn the raps of the day off by heart is the day I've been here too long.
I
I'm
remember
never
this.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember. I think the day I found out that I had been there too long was the day that I knew all the McFlurries we had and knew that they weren't there
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
But with enough confidence to tell people, actually, we used to have that,
Yeah.
but it's not here anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what I knew, that I was like, I already know too much. The minute I know more than someone who's been in the shop 2 seconds
Yeah.
is the day I know I've been here too long and had to leave. Yeah.
It gets to the point where, I don't know, you're somewhat proud of your knowledge, but people go, "Why is this taking so long?" Like, you're out with your friends and you go, "Well, actually, see, you ordered the fillet," and they don't keep that fresh, that's probably made to order, and that's when you go, "Oh my God, Like
Yeah.
I know it, but I'm proud of it. I flaunt it.
I
Like
know, even once again with the McFlurries, they're like, "Why is the end of the spoon like that?" And I'm like, "Oh, you just
oh
wait
you
until I
did
let you know." And I'm like flaunting it, but I
yeah
also hate myself
yeah
because I'm like, I don't know why, but like during the day I don't want to be there, but as soon as my friends are there, I kind of want to go behind the
yeah yeah
thing and just show them that I can make coffees, you know. But
yeah.
then again, all it is pushing a button,
I
so it's
it's
not.
no like, but I don't know. I think it's something like you just want to be. It feels nice to be good at something, and it's kind of
Yes.
easy to get good at everything in McDonald's because it's so simple.
You can very quickly become a master at anything in there if you
Yeah,
spend. Well, I mean, first of all, you're spending 8 hours, 9 hours,
yeah, yeah,
10 hours even sometimes in there doing these things
yeah,
consistently with only what it ended up being a half an hour and 15 minutes.
yeah,
It used to be a lot more,
yeah,
but no, now like 45 minutes in a day off, and the rest of it you're totally in there working
yeah,
as hard as you can. And I think when you spend that time doing anything for that long, like I was there, I think just over 2 years,
yeah.
you're an expert. Sometimes I take out wraps at home and kind of get a little bit of a
I
shudder.
I've taken out wraps at home, and I'm like, this is my time to shine.
Mm.
This is the only transferable skill. Uh, I think I've got like a couple wrapping wraps I can transfer to my real life, and not being afraid of hot things. Like
Yes.
before I worked in McDonald's, if I ever like had to put something in the oven or like in a pot or a pan, I'd always kind of like hold it by the very edge and like kind of gently try and put it in, and like as
Mm.
soon as I felt the heat, I'd like run away. But now I'm like, I can just like stick my hand in the oven,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
grand.
Because
Like
of like, oh my God, the amount of people in there is that like, I mean, I ended up being one of them as well, where you walk in and everyone's like just got these
like Freddy Krueger.
horrible forearms, and you're
Yeah.
like, what happened to you? And they're all like, well, you know, that can burn you, and that can burn you, and
And
these
that can,
cups they
yeah,
can burn you, and it's like, why does everything, and why are we so close to it all the
I
time?
know.
And they just slowly started taking space away in the
Yeah,
kitchen, so
yeah.
you're sort of sitting on a grill during the
Oh
day.
man, it was terrible. But that's enough about McDonald's. That's a different
Yeah,
podcast.
but I'm not McDonald's
No.
anymore.
You know
Liam Wilson
McDonald's.
Smith is a different man.
Liam Smyth, actor and
Actor,
performer.
represented actor.
So I love that you started off with actor. What actor stuff have you done?
So of course, me and you, we own Thunder and Theatre
Oh yeah.
Company that
Oh
we
yeah.
founded together.
Oh yeah.
We have done an original play with that. We've
Oh
done it
yeah.
twice now,
Yeah.
and that would be probably one of my main um that would be like my main interest as far as like pushing acting and stuff goes.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I'm represented by Castaway Actors Agency,
Ooh.
which is, you know, oh my God, so lucky to
Yeah,
to be
yeah, yeah.
represented by this. It does make me, I think with being an actor, there's a lot of doubt about whether or not you should just keep going all
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah, yeah.
and until something comes along. I mean, every time I think about quitting, every time I get really close to quitting, something comes along, and I sort
Yeah.
of go, I'll keep doing it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah.
And Castaway was one of those things,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was a strong one, and it keeps me interested
Yeah,
because
yeah.
even if it's not concerning me, they send out emails daily, just
Yeah.
being like, "Hey guys, just seeing how you're doing and stuff like
It
that."
just makes it maybe feel a bit more real. Like
Makes me
you're,
feel like I actually have a job as an actor,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
makes me want to commit myself to it, rather than feeling like it's a hobby that's taking up time from
Yeah.
the eventual office job I will
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's a depressing note to end on.
It is.
Thanks.
But I'm gonna do it. I mean, I'm gonna.
But we did our play, and we're going to do more plays
We
in
are
the
gonna do an
future,
awful
and that's
lot more,
good.
yeah.
Say no more. End on the happy note.
Mm.
So one of the reasons in particular I wanted you to be a guest is because you've noted a couple of times before that I've said this quote where I say, you know how from your perspective you're always right, or like I'm always in the right,
Mm.
or if it's from your perspective you'll always be in the right, and you say, no, Ken, that's just you. That just speaks a lot
Yes.
about you.
Yes.
Well, like, I think about it. I take it on. I'm not a zombie, so I did think about it, and
That's what a zombie would say, Ken.
oh,
Oh.
but no, I did think about it, and I just thought it was funny. And then when I was reading this, I was like, that's very kind of relevant. I think not relevant to the zombie, but more so to the type of people who would think about this. Like when I think of the kind of people who would go, maybe I'm the only intelligent person in the world, in the universe. Maybe everyone else, there's 7 billion other people, they act like me, but they don't have minds, they don't think. Now I'm just going to say this, I don't fully agree with this. I think that's a bit presumptuous. And I think the kind of person who thinks that is probably someone who's a bit like up their own arse and
Mm.
thinks they're always right from their perspective.
Kenny, the philosophy
Uh,
book.
that-
You
the-
can't
the-
speak
the-
about this.
I thought it was funny because then, it points out where I think if you do kind of have that mentality, it can lead to stuff like this, which is a very kind of extreme version
Mm.
of almost what I was saying, which I guess is good because now I can look out for that and try not to think like that, even though I am always right from my perspective. Um, but yeah, so this idea of zombie minds, it's also known as the problem of the other mind. The main crux of it being is me, who is talking now, and you who are listening, if you are thinking, you are probably thinking, I have a mind. I have an inner life. I have a soul. Like whatever name you want to put on it, there is something inside you that's more than purely physical. There is the thought, the emotion, all that kind of stuff. But the problem is when you come to other people, when I'm sitting here in front of you, um, and you claim to have a mind like this, like a soul, all these yearnings, these feelings, these emotions, it's hidden. There's no way that I can glimpse at that. I can't view that. There's no kind of proof. There's nothing I can touch. There's nothing I can feel. So how do I know that that it is that you have this mind, and it's not just behavior, and kind of like what I was talking about with the zombie people, you know, people say if you can go up and you can kick them and they'll feel pain, or if they stand on a Lego they'll feel pain. If something sad happens they'll cry and they'll act sad. But how do you know the emotion is behind that and they're not just mimicking it and emulating it? Um, and one of the things that I think is interesting, I was thinking when I was reading this, was it may seem kind of hard to grasp that idea of like, well, I don't know, just the concept of someone, crying but not feeling sad, saying ow and kind of, ooh, but they don't actually feel pain. But I know you recently got into video games, so
Mm.
you know a little bit about that. You play Warzone.
Slightly.
Slightly. I can't remember, did I tell you, your record, you had 0 kills, 2 deaths.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm not far off getting my kill death streak the other way round, am
Well,
I?
well, actually, your score, because it's so low, even though you've got like 2 deaths more than kills, it's still a 0-0 ratio because I guess there's not enough information.
It's because they
So
can see the skill within the deaths. They were like, you didn't just die, you were murdered.
He was a victim.
You gave everyone else a show. This is why people play the game, to see the way you die.
Well, one of those deaths was you saved my life, or you tried to save my life.
Yes.
You were a bullet shield. You had your back to the enemies as you were like poking me with the syringe, as you were getting like
I took
I'll
it
save
for the
again.
team. But I did get out of that gulag, that second chance thing that you get one time where you get killed and suddenly they're like, do you want to get killed again to make sure you're not really willing to win the game? And I made out of that once and now I died again. So, I don't think anyone in the history of the game has died before they even leave the plane. But
Yeah.
Liam Smyth is that man.
But so Warzone is a fun game. But have you ever played any games that I suppose that like Warzone is an online game, so every other person is a player. But have you ever played the likes of say like Grand Theft Auto, like GTA 5 or anything like that?
No, but in Warzone they have like practice.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
what yeah.
practice thing. Okay, so you remember the practice thing? There's like a part where the guy, he's like pick up your teammate and stuff like that. So if like a teammate, he falls down the floor, he's hurt, and you go over, and as you're like poking him with the syringe, this little character's going ooh, as if he's getting hurt, and you pick him up and he goes, oh thanks, let's go. And you see he's emulating emotion and he's emulating pain, but we know it's a computer program. He's not actually feeling it. And kind of like that in these games like GTA, where they have whole populations of cities walking around and they'll interact. If they hit off something, they'll go oh that hurt, and they'll run off. They'll pretend to be scared, they'll scream, but there's no feeling, there's no mind. I just think that kind of puts it into a kind of a context or a different perspective where you can kind of see where this idea is coming from, where that is actually true in a video game where you are controlling the main character and you're going around and you, I suppose, technically, don't feel pain because you're experiencing it, secondhand or whatever. But you are the intent, you are the mind in that game. Everything else is just a zombie. It's just pretending. And I suppose this question is asking, what if it's like that in this life? What if you are the main character? And although I'm saying this to you, maybe I'm not thinking it. I've just been kind of programmed to say it, and it's all part of the thing, which is something that kind of comes up in philosophy a lot. Is the like false realities, and we kind of talked about this in one of the early episodes. I'm struggling to remember which one. The brain in the vat. Yeah, it was the first one, the very first one. Just that idea of like living in a program. But this one, I guess, is more. It's not quite living in a program. You're, for all intents and purposes, living in real life, but other people just don't have that kind of mind. Now, maybe this sounds like a crazy question, but bringing it back to another episode, and we touched on this a little bit, where we talked about what is it like to be a bat. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend go watch it because it feeds into this, and it's a pretty good episode anyway. But we talked about basically how kind of the mind and experiences, there's this kind of untouchable quality to it, experiencing something and describing it, like I don't know if you've seen, or I don't know if you listened to the episode, but like there's this idea that there's this woman who lives in a room that's all black and white, and as she grows up, she's only allowed to read like black and white books. She has a TV, it's all black and white, that she watches lectrons. She learns everything there is to know about everything in the universe, every conceivable thing she knows. So the same could be said about colors. She knows about red, she knows about the pigments, she knows about blue, she knows about what it does to a person, she knows what it looks like if you mix blue and red, she knows everything. But when she finally leaves that room and she sees red and she sees blue for the first time, she has experienced them. And that's something different. It's something that can't be taught, and that's the kind of mind. So given this, that it's so hard to pinpoint our own mind, which is the only thing that philosophers tend to be certain on, but even not always. But they go, well, I have a mind, but I don't even know what it is. We can't even be certain of our own minds, never mind someone else's or other people's. And that's kind of where part of the problem comes in, and people think, well, given that it is so hard to kind of pinpoint a mind, maybe having a mind and a consciousness in this kind of physical world is kind of rare. Maybe it's almost unique, and this is where it comes from. But as I said, maybe you feel differently, but I think it is a little bit of up your own arsery, to kind of assume like just that, I think I'm the only intelligent person in the room, in the
world,
in the universe.
I'm the only one. And here I am playing Warzone.
Yeah. But it is. I feel like people do like they're like, I am the most intelligent being, but they're not. They're not like, I don't know, in the CERN super collider. They're not like in a lab. They're just like, I just get things.
It's me. Yeah.
I just get things better.
I just get things quicker.
Yeah.
I can solve problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm sure we know a few people like that, not to mention them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, them.
Yeah. Okay, so apart from zombies, there is another variant called mutants. And they're similar to zombies. They're the same kind of idea, but they're not as severe. Mutants, they have the behavior, they do the gestures and stuff, but they also have a mind behind them. The problem with the mutants is, how can you know if they are wired the same way? I guess, if that makes sense. So to put it like this, so we'll say, say I am the person, I am unique, and you are the mutant. I stub my toe, I go, ow, that hurt, and I feel the pain. It feels bad. I know what pain feels like to me. You stub your toe, you feel pain, you go, ow. But And although you felt something, how do I know the pain you felt was, I don't know, the same as I felt? Was it the same level? And I often kind of think this, and it's a bit of a gripe I have. When like if you ever do something and it's like really sore, like you hit yourself off something, and people are like, and you're like, oh, and people are like, oh, like get over it, it's not that bad. Like I've been hit there and it's not
Mm.
that bad. And you're like, well, then you mustn't feel pain the way I feel, because this is like killing. This is agony.
Yes.
But it's funny. Like it does make you think. Like, and people talk about pain thresholds, and maybe this is kind of like, I guess it's so common that people have come up with a not so philosophical. Cut that out.
Don't you dare. Kenny, in the future, you fucking leave that in right now.
But he goes, but yeah, no, maybe it's a way of kind of explaining that, where it does seem like, there's things like, do you ever I don't know, like pluck your eyebrows or anything, or
Mm.
yeah, like I do that sometimes, or Jodie will do that for me, and she like plucked them. She's like, it's not that bad, and then she does it to me, and I'm like, this is like torture. I feel like I'm in I feel like I'm in the gulag.
No, it
getting,
is
like,
the worst. It's the worst. And then, they're
And it's
there.
like, you just
and
have-
like,
yeah.
that, like the whole face. And then the one comes off, and I'm like, give me a sec. My eyes are watering so
yeah,
much. I can't even taste like I'm in bits.
yeah. But they're like, it's just the pain threshold. You just have a different pain threshold, and you're like, is it? Like, does that make sense that people would feel pain at different levels?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, obviously, maybe like size and stuff like that, and other kind of factors, but like deep down, shouldn't pain feel the same kind of across the border, or like do people feel pain? I guess like does someone feel pain where I feel pleasure, or vice versa? And I mean, I guess bits of that kind of leak into people just chalk it up to like different tastes. Like some people hate the smells of some things, where the people love it. So one person gets pain, one gets pleasure. So this kind of thing where you see it's become a little more subtle. It's not quite, you don't have a mind, I do. It's we both have minds, but yours seems to work just different. It's just it's getting the same signals, and it's getting the same like stimulus, but it's interpreting it differently. Or even colors. Colors is a big one that people have talked about. Do people see the same colors that I see? If you look at like the Irish flag or whatever, it's green, white, and orange. But does the color green look the same to you as it does to me? Whatever color it is, maybe from my perspective, if I was to see through your eyes, the color green is purple. But because you've grown up with it calling green, that like we assume we're on the same page, and we assume we're seeing the same color. So everything you see, everything green you see would be purple. Everything blue would be black. It could be anything like this. But it's interesting. It's this more kind of subtle way of thinking about it, and kind of understanding the thought behind it. But I have a question now for everyone, but also my guest. Who is the smartest person you know?
So I think I would have to say, like I'm not going to say like Einstein or something like that, because it wouldn't be. I don't think.
Okay. Yeah. Perhaps I should have prefaced this. More so, someone you know in real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that when I answer this, I'm not so much thinking about like the smartest in this area or this.
No.
I'm thinking about the smartest person that I know who navigates life the best.
Yeah.
So I'm going to probably say my mom.
Oh yeah.
Because from my experience, I mean, you grow up thinking that your parents are the best and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then it's once you reach, I think, like around like maybe 17, maybe even like 16,
Yeah.
you start to see them for people. You start to say they are real people.
Yeah.
And then it's once you start seeing them like that you see how well they're doing everything.
Yeah.
And especially my mom, like I think that she, as far as like getting through life is concerned,
Yeah.
I just think it's I think it's very knowledgeable and very logical the way she's going through things, and then I see how she budgets, I see how she takes what she has and she uses it to get the most, and so I'd say as far as like that's concerned, I would probably have to say my mom.
Okay. No, it's interesting. Just because I was thinking about it, and I suppose like that's a good answer. I was hoping you would fall into a trap
Mm.
and say yourself. But
we can go back.
No. It's
I'd have
okay.
to say me.
Me. But I think it's interesting because I think there are people out there who would say themselves.
Hmm.
I
I
mean,
think I think for a long time I would have said myself. You
I
know.
think it's maybe I don't know, maybe like that, maybe around that kind of age when you start to kind of have your own thoughts and opinions. You just for some reason you think you know everything, and you think
Yes.
I think I'm just I think I am the smartest,
Yeah. But like
or
to be fair, I think that around I remember being probably like 11,
yeah,
and I remember being, in school, and when I was 11, I was in first year, which
mm,
was young to be,
yeah,
in first year. And I think because everyone was older than me, I think I very quickly started having opinions, and I
yeah.
started having thoughts of my own, which sounds weird that you're like 11 year, but like honestly, yeah, that's about when I
No,
started
but yeah,
thinking
like
about,
when you start like growing up and you start kind of just realizing stuff. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And around then, I honestly didn't think anyone else around me was having the same thing.
yeah,
And I actually don't think they were.
yeah,
Like, I think it took people a few more years.
yeah,
I don't know what it was that pushed me into that way of thinking, but I definitely think that around then, I may have been a little bit early to the party as far as, starting to have thoughts of a like debating nature and opinions on things that
yeah,
other people are just like okay with. So definitely around then I would have been
yeah.
like
Because obviously,
I'm the smartest.
yeah,
But as time goes on, obviously people come to the same realizations, and
yeah.
then they build up their own.
But it's just interesting because I feel like that kind of question is as much a part of this philosophy or this discussion, because I just feel like the whole idea of it is rooted in this idea that I feel like the kind of person who would think about that and go, who is the smartest person I know? I'm gonna have to say me is the kind of person who is gonna take this on. I not that necessarily
Mm,
that's a bad thing, but I think someone who has that kind of thing and has that kind of thought process that, like I was saying, like I said, that from my perspective, I'm always right, and obviously
yeah,
that changes. Um, maybe I didn't explain right. Obviously that can change afterwards. Maybe after the moment and you think about it, then you go, oh, maybe I wasn't right. But in
yeah,
the moment, like there's never a time where you're arguing and you're going, I'm wrong, but I'm going to argue anyway. You think you're right. You assume you're right
yes,
until proven otherwise.
yeah.
Um,
And I tend to, as soon as I would realize I'm wrong in an argument, the argument's over. Like I definitely know some people who would argue,
yeah,
and they'll argue up to a point where they realize they're wrong,
yeah,
and you'll see it in their face
yeah,
turn
yeah, yeah,
that I'm now wrong. But they will continue for pride's sake,
yeah.
which is mental.
It's crazy. Um, just out of curiosity, we'll bring it back down.
Hmm.
Out of maybe this won't end up in it, but I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Out of our close friends group, who would you say is the smartest? So that's like the 5 or 6 lads.
Well, yeah, probably you.
Oh, me?
But
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Well, I'll say why as well, because maybe it's because I spend the most time with you. Maybe it's
Yeah.
because any number of things, but definitely because I think that when I think about myself, I think about, you know,
Yeah.
you have these parts of your brain, and
Yeah.
people have a higher percentage in other places, and the two sides that I split into are logical and primal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have this logical side of your brain where something happens, snap decision, something happens, and your brain takes it in,
Yeah.
thinks about it for a moment, comes up with a solution, and
Yeah.
then carries out the solution.
Yeah.
Whereas the primal side of your brain will take something in and react primally.
Yeah.
It'll react it'll react with the basics of like, survive,
Yeah.
food, sex, protection, all those things straight away. And so I think that with you, I think that I see an awful lot more of the logical
Yeah.
side of the brain being used more often, especially in like high pressure situations. So we've done plays together. We've been in the height of stress, getting
Yeah.
ready for things, whether
Yeah.
it's shows that we've, been cast in, shows that we're putting on.
Yeah.
And by far the most stressful is, of course, putting it on. But then with all these different roles that we have to fill, I see you doing it the most logically. And I see that even though it's not the job that you're there to do, the job you're there to do is act and
Yeah.
write and perform. Then when it comes to stuff like, we're creating programs or we're doing advertising, we're doing all these things that we weren't really meant to do. I see you approaching it with a logical brain, nearly to a point where I say he could be employed to do this. But then also socially as well,
Yeah.
so of course with people, sometimes I find it difficult to stay behind a point that I'm making in a group of friends
Right.
because I don't want to push those friends away.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Whereas with you, I feel like you're not afraid of pushing back a point because you know they're your friends. And to be honest, if there was anything going on, I also feel like you'd have the confidence to say, well, I wasn't wrong to do that.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? And it's having that confidence in your own thoughts, having the confidence behind what you say
yeah,
to a point where you're comfortable to say it without being afraid of the ramifications because you know it's safe to do so. I think that's a very like smart thing to do, and I
yeah,
think that just the way your brain works is very logical all the time,
yeah,
and I see you thinking things through well, like
yeah.
navigating your way through situations quite well.
Oh, that's so lovely. And
Ah.
I'm kind of in two minds because I don't want to turn this into like a dick sucking, like
Oh,
no,
very nice.
I don't want to put it in and be like, hey guys, listen to my podcast where all my friends come on and tell me how great I am. But I think you made some good points, I guess, in you made some good points about it, in points that can be transferred to
Yes.
what makes a person smart.
Yeah, well, the reason I say that is because, I think a lot of the time the base thing I use to see what I think of other people is myself.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so I look at myself and I think that, especially the time that we spent in college together doing voice work and
yeah,
doing all these different things and performance college, an awful lot of it is looking inwards the whole time.
yeah, yeah,
And even to an extent when you get on stage, you're still looking inwards,
mm,
And so I think getting so good at looking inwards, which I think actually
yeah,
is a skill,
yeah,
being able to reflect on yourself and look at the negative parts
yeah,
and expose them to yourself is tough. And so I think that by looking inwards, looking at myself, seeing the things that, I lack, seeing the things that I have,
yeah, yeah,
being grateful for the things I have and working hard for the things I want,
yeah,
within myself. In doing that, I can see the good traits in other people and I can see where they're excelling, where I'm not,
yeah, yeah,
And I think that the reason I would say maybe that you're the smartest is I'm not sure if I spent more time with the rest of them, if my mind would change,
yeah,
but definitely so far anyway, like even in just like, a life scenario,
yeah, yeah,
as far as like, my work colleagues and, all that goes,
yeah.
as far as that spreads, I don't know if it's because we spent more time together, but definitely with you, I do see, how would you say? I guess I just see a lot more thought being used all the
Yeah,
time.
I guess this is an interesting kind of perspective on it. Because as I said, I don't want to make it all about me, because everything you're saying I think is very good
Hmm.
because it can be transferred. Um, I don't know, to other situations, like you're saying a lot that you've spent by far the most time with
Hmm.
me. We're in college, we're in work, we're in school. Like years, literal, like almost like
Hmm.
years together. Um, it kind of makes sense, I guess, because, and like you said, you see the thought. So I guess when you spend that much time with someone, you see the thought process. I guess, like, when you hang out with friends, you hang out and then they go home, and then you see them, a week later, a couple of weeks later.
Hmm.
You don't ever see the in between. And I guess maybe we've just seen the in between enough that maybe it's not even that I'm particularly smart, but you've just seen it. You've actually seen the evidence that I am thinking about some things,
Hmm.
which is more than you've seen of the others. Not that I don't think, you just haven't seen it. Like,
Yes.
so it's an
Yeah.
interesting, and I think it kind of leads back into this, which is some people, how they classify intelligence, and some people I think would go to themselves and say, I am the smartest because I do this and this, and they don't recognize it in others. Maybe they haven't spent
Hmm.
enough time. But I think as well, just when you were talking, I was kind of thinking as well. I was listening, obviously, but
Hmm.
but I was also thinking. I'm great at multitasking. I'm great at multi. I'm,
But
gre-
don't.
I'm great at multitasking up to two things. I can do two things at once.
Breathe and look.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And here I am.
Breathe and look. So when I'm talking, I have my eyes closed,
Yes.
and when I'm looking at you, I'm not breathing.
Mm-mm.
Good point. But I'm just thinking of what people use as kind of classifications for intelligence,
Hmm.
and I kind of think like that. Not that I give it a super amount of thought, but I think, of the people I know, and not necessarily just like close friends, but like everyone, and I go like, are they intelligent? Are they smart? Are they, clever? All that kind of stuff. And maybe that means different things to different people, but I kind of look at, like, obviously there's some people I know who are quite book smart.
Hmm.
They're great at kind of retaining information and facts, and kind of re explaining it then, and like putting it back out there. and holding on to that kind of stuff, and like maths and stuff like that. Then there's other people who would be terrible at that, but I feel like they have a better a better reflection upon themselves, where they can
Mm.
look at themselves, and I feel like that's I don't know, like almost as good. Like I wouldn't classify myself as like a book kind of person or like a
Yeah.
book learner, but I think I'm a quite a reflective person. I think
Mm.
that's one of my strengths. And there's like people I know who um like just I don't know, like not like they're not good with kind of books or words or um kind of stuff, and like maybe on the outside they may seem uh like they're not particularly like bright, but once you get to know them and you see the deep thought that's behind them when it comes to other things, or like things like creativity,
Mm.
people who hate school, but then they um they have these like amazing ideas,
Yes.
or like, and maybe they don't even put them into like practice per se, like I mean, we are very practical people. Like I would consider myself creative. I'm sure you think of yourself as
Mm.
creative. I think you're quite creative. So we channel that into, you've got your piano and your acting and your like sketches, and then like this, I want to do a podcast. I want to, play guitar. I want to do all that
Mm.
kind of stuff. Other people don't channel it in that kind of same way. Socially, like they're just great at making jokes. They're kind of quick witted.
I was actually going to say that I think, in my opinion, the most important, and I've always thought this,
Yeah,
the most important intelligence you can have is social intelligence,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think. Because, when it comes to being out and about in life, I think it's
yeah,
more important to know how to talk to people
yeah,
than it is to know things about past, or to be creatively smarter,
yeah, yeah,
whatever it is. Even though that is literally like my life goal, to create things and to entertain
yeah,
with
yeah,
them, I think it's way more important to know how to navigate yourself socially.
yeah,
Because when it comes to, say you're in a restaurant or something and a waitress or a waiter comes over, I mean, it's those moments that make life a little bit easier to get through
yeah,
for both you and them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's the most important intelligence.
yeah. Just being nice and knowing to be not. Yeah, like it's
Being able to make someone's day better without literally saying anything. I
yeah,
mean, I know a number of times me and Molly have, gone out for dinner, or we've gone out to a restaurant or something
yeah,
like that, and it's just something as simple as saying, like, they're like, what drink would you like? And I'm like, well, look, what one's the best one? Be honest with me here, Claire.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's little things like that where you go, you've just done something, and although it might seem weird on the outside,
yeah, yeah,
what you've done is you've broken down a boundary that's there, and I think that's very socially clever to
yeah,
make a connection with someone. And it's all these, and I know that you could break it down to things like um, name repetition, mirroring, all these things.
yeah, yeah,
But when you break it down to a very, like, base form,
yeah,
it's just being able to communicate and being
yeah.
able to make connections with people. I think in life that's gonna be more important.
I think so, because I think if you have that, so I think if you have good social skills and a kind of social intelligence, you will. It kind of comes from the basic understanding that you are kind of the same as everyone else,
Mm.
because like that, there are people who go in and they get caught up in the roles. Like there are so many kind of roles and like classes and divisions. So it's like, and we take them for granted. So like, the actor is on stage and the audience is in the seat, and we don't talk to each other. I do my thing, you do your thing. That's the roles. But then people come along, they change it so they get the audience involved, and that's what makes it interesting. But then, and obviously roles sometimes work. Like there's the shopkeeper and the customer, the bank robber and the police. We fall into these things. But then there's like the customer and the waiter, and people take it for granted and they forget in amongst these roles that these are people. They're just the same as you and me. Um, I don't know. Maybe this sounds like preachy or something. Like they're the same, but just having worked in these like crappy jobs in like bars
Yes.
and restaurants and stuff, people do just they think of you. You are the face of the business, or you like you're not the person anymore, and they don't want to talk. Like they'll use as little kind of politeness or as little kind of like just niceness,
Yeah.
and like if they were to talk to a person, like if this was someone they were introduced to as an equal, if they talk to them the way they speak to you and the way they treat you, they'd be considered quite rude.
Absolutely. And you
But
know what? It can go two ways. It can either go the way where I think maybe a little bit like me and you, where,
yeah,
you take that bad experience and you go, okay, well, I'm now not going to be like that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other half can say, well, I've taken that enough.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dish it back
No,
out
no,
a
it's
little
my
bit.
turn. Yeah.
And like I don't blame them at all. Like
Yeah.
I actually, sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you literally want to just give them the uniform and say, get on that side of it now. I'm gonna do exactly what you just did.
Yeah.
And you have all these little things that you play out when it's 5 a.m. and you're standing at a till and no one's coming to get anything, and
Yeah.
the drunk crowd is clearing out and the morning crowd is coming in, and you're like, I'm here for this transition, and you just think these little scenarios to yourself, and that's when it can become very, but luckily a bit of reflection will, make you want to be better.
Yeah. I think that like that. There's this great quote. Actually, it's a great quote by a terrible man. Yeah, interesting, spicy. Do you know Vince McMahon?
No.
No, he's the kind of owner, the CEO of the WWE.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's a good businessman. He bought up wrestling. He kind of monopolized it. He kind of owns wrestling, and a lot of the stuff he did, and the reason we think of wrestling as it is today is because of him. But obviously, he has his flaws. He was known as CM Punk called him a millionaire who should be a billionaire because he was just, I don't know, he's just so up in himself that he didn't he didn't make the right moves. But that's beside the point. The quote he said was, "I'm not better than anyone else, but no one is better than me." I like that quote. It's something that I do kind of think about, where it is, because I think people get caught up in the, oh, you have to be nice and you have to be polite, and you do to a certain extent, like when dealing with people, but you have to have a certain level of self-respect where it's not that you go, oh, it's all about that, I have to make them happy, or I'm looking down on them. It's, we're the same here. I'm just a guy coming in for a bit of food. You're just a guy whose job it is, because you want to put food on the table. So then you can go with food. So you just go, and some people do. Some people just get it. Like, people come in and they go, "Oh, hey man, how you doing? Oh, grand. Gee, it's a bit busy today, isn't it? Ah, yeah, but and you just, and stuff like that. Where you're like, I'm just having a conversation, but I'm just doing this because it's my job. Like,
Yes.
But if it wasn't here, like it's as if we're just having a conversation. And then there's people who come in and they're like, they think you're like a servant. They think you're like
like a machine.
Yeah.
They just say words at you, and you're meant to develop those into a thing. Best thing I ever did in McDonald's. The best thing I ever did. Was it was super busy. But my role in McDonald's was that basically I stood on the lobby.
Yeah.
And this is after maybe nearly a year of being in the kitchen.
The incel.
Yeah.
CEO. No, sorry, the CEO.
Dare you.
Customer experience leader.
I was being the professional simp of the. But I would literally, after a year of being in the kitchen, being like great in the kitchen, they were like, you know what, you do great. Standing on lobby. So I then spent the remainder of my time there, a year and a bit, just being on lobby, doing everything that you would have to do on lobby, any sort of cleaning that had to get done, no matter what no matter what the dirt. I would clean it. But then also dealing with people, like trying to direct as much people traffic away from the kitchen, and all the complaints away from the kitchen. That was my job. And the best thing I ever did to break down that wall between them going, you are McDonald's, and I'm annoyed at you, was I was on the till and it was super busy, and this guy was being very irate, and he hadn't said anything bad, but I could tell it was coming if I got something wrong. And so when he went to pay for it, he just handed me his card. And like, the machines went on, you can pick them up and give them to him, but he just handed me it. So I tapped it, and while I was tapping it, I saw his name on the card. So I just went, do I know you from somewhere? And he was like, I don't think so. And I went, Derek. And he went, yeah. And I went, Liam.
Yeah.
You know Liam. And I literally went on with this, like, I'd say like 20 seconds I did this, right? And he was like, I don't know. And I went, I just saw your name on the card, man.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he was like, I could tell he went through obviously a range of things, but there was no complaints. I know that it seems like, well, he hadn't complained yet. But you and I know, when someone's going to complain from before they even say a word to you. You do. And he was one of them. He was going to definitely 1,000%, because he was saying the order, and I could tell he was making it confusing. And he's obviously been, kind of messed around with it before. And so when I said this, I was like, there you go. And like, to bring it back again, I think that when I think of like this whole Zombie Minds thing, the number one thing that I grab examples from is working in McDonald's.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't really think of anywhere else that I'd see it as much.
Yeah.
But definitely working in McDonald's, because you see people at their best, you see them at their worst, and mainly it's at their worst, you know, and the volumes of people that you see, and you just wonder if they're even thinking. You know, you wonder if do they know that I do clock out?
Yeah.
Do they know that I have a break during the day? Do they know that I have a mom and a girlfriend and all these things? No, they don't. They just see me as something that is part of this building.
Yeah.
And I have a service to do.
Yeah, like you're always going to be there. And like I remember, like there was a couple of times where we'd clock out at the same time, and you'd be walking, you'd have your little kind of like your jacket on and your flat cap, and you know we'd it's like coming out of the mine, and we'd have to walk through the lobby obviously to get out. And there was this one customer in particular, and she'd be like, "Oh, Liam, can you help my special, you know, order for tea?" And you're kind of like, I'm not here anymore.
Yes.
For all intents and purposes, I don't exist in this building.
Yeah.
Stop talking to me.
Yeah. And I guess that just shows that I went too far with the job. You know,
Yeah.
like my job was not to be like, I mean, like I know that in McDonald's when they first came up with the job that I had, they were like, because I was one of the first to do it, and they were like, you know what? We want to make McDonald's a place where they see us as human.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the nicest people we know. And the only reason that I was one of the nicest there was because I didn't tell everyone to fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only reason. It wasn't hard to get to the top brass.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't insult people that were customers, you know.
Yeah.
But then then when I had that job, it's like people, you know, were coming up to me afterwards and stuff like that. And it's like, you know what? You need to realize that this isn't my end goal at all.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but it's not fair. Like, and it's interesting as well. Just a little McDonald's facts, because you were the CEO like that. The idea is it's like you are the nicest person. They take the nicest person and they just stick them out in the lobby, and their job is it's not supposed to be like cleaning it or anything. It's just they stand there to talk to the customers and make them have a good time, make them feel special. Apart from you, because you were a pretty nice guy, no matter which McDonald's like I ever worked in or went to kind of as a customer, I never seen a CEO that was nice. They're always grumpy. They were always terrible.
Well, yeah.
They were there. No, like, and even
let's be honest.
Because we've opened it up now.
They're power mad.
not even power mad, but like when I think of like a nice person, you are quite a nice person. You know, quite naturally, but also you have a quite nice person quite naturally. Like it comes to you naturally, but also you have the social kind of skills to know to be nice. You know, like there's times where I think of myself as like I can be quite nice, but if someone's not nice to me, that's when I kind of shut off. But you have an amazing ability to work through that. You know, like if someone's being mean to you, you can still be nice to them and civil with them, which is a great skill. It's a skill that a lot of people don't have, because as soon as it gets turned on them, they just shut down. But you, like, you know, like I remember like telling stories or like seeing it happen where people are like, you know, and you're like, I'm really sorry about that, but hey, look, you know, whatever your name is, hey, look, Derek, I'm gonna fix that.
Around. Yeah.
And so it's a great skill. No other CEO had that. Like,
it's getting very specific, Kenny.
I know. But
like they won't listen.
No. But yeah, no. But anyway, okay, maybe not speaking about them, but speaking about other CEOs that.
Okay, we'll go back.
They're all terrible. Like I go in and like it's always like grumpy. Like even working in because
Schmeilmore.
Yeah, Schmeilmore. Working in Schmeilmore at the moment. I'm working in one, and they're there for some reason.
Yes.
Even though it's a lockdown, so there are no customers who to lead their experience, but they're there, and I don't get it. Like I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know what? We did training in the same one.
In Schmeilmore.
But just to say that, so the way that McDonald's works, which is mental to me, is that, you know, there's this guy who owns like 7 or 8 of them. Yeah. And so employees are sort of interchangeable, even though they're literally tens of miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
You know, but employees are just sort of interchangeable between them.
Yeah.
And so when our store was closed, we did training in all the other ones.
Yeah.
And so we were traveling, who knows where, sometimes further, sometimes closer to get to them.
Yeah, we both live out in Tala, but I remember I got sent off to East Wall, which is like the docks. Like
it's mad. It was madness. It was so much
and there's one in Kylemore. There's one in Cranley, which is like next to Kylemore.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would have preferred one of them.
Absolutely. But then, so we're doing training in one, and I remember being there, and as my CEL role, I had a big head on me. I was like, it's time to be the best. And so we go there, and we're doing all the training, and then it was in that training I realized how much I missed the kitchen.
Yeah.
Because I just missed being in there with the people I work with, which was the only reason I stayed in the job at all for that long, was because of the people that worked there.
Yeah.
But these CELs, I remember walking past you guys in the kitchen. This is like the defining moment of my whole time in that career, is that I walked past you guys, and the CELs in that store were CELs.
Yeah.
Whereas in our store, I was customer experience, I was all that stuff, but I also did work.
Yeah.
I refilled everything, I changed bins, I did anything, and I was sort of, I think towards the end of it, I did actually feel like a manager of lobby.
Yeah.
Because I took on the responsibility of doing that. Teaching people, when they came out, I was training them. It was all this stuff. I wasn't ever trained to do, but I took on the role because I felt like being on a higher pay, it's not fair to not do that extra stuff.
Yeah.
It's not fair to take it as a break, especially when people are breaking their backs in the kitchen, burning themselves.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
And there's other people who who had no problem. And this pissed me off about one person in particular was, and I won't say who, but you know who you are. Right? No, but and honestly, this annoys me. There's nothing to do with philosophy. We've gone off the topic now. We've gone off the
zombie minds.
Yeah, zombie minds. But we've gone off topic. But so this person was a CEL. They were getting paid a higher wage than everyone else in the kitchen was, because they were supposedly doing a different job.
And it was supposedly a management position.
Yeah.
Yes.
Supposedly, right? They spent their entirety of their time working in the kitchen, doing the same job I was doing, but getting paid more.
Yes.
Because they couldn't be bothered being out in lobby, because they hated it. They were like, oh, I don't want to talk to people. That's your job. That's your job, is to stand out there. If it's boring, why did you take it?
Yes.
If you hate it that much, you shouldn't have taken it.
Yes.
But instead, they took the money and did the same job anyway. They took, and
that annoyed me as well, being there, because I thought at first it was going to be a great job, and then after an hour of doing the job, I realized it was worse.
Yeah.
So much worse.
Yeah.
And I realized why I was getting paid more, which was because the only training you could do for that job was learn to not have arguments when you're you're in the position where no one will blame you for hitting them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the real skill with that job was keeping a calm head, and even when someone is saying the most ridiculous, rude things to you, telling them that they're right.
Yeah.
And so then I actually ended up yearning for night shifts.
Yeah.
Because there was no CEL on night shifts, and I was back in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And that was all I wanted, just to stay away from people who were literally, like, I can't think of the worst thing that happened in there, because there was so many.
Yeah.
But, like, as far as, like syringes being thrown at me, and terrible, terrible things that you go, what? And then I think that, the pay, I think I was on $9.70 to start with, and then I got bumped up to $11.50 for this position, for the manager thing. And so you can obviously tell that with that change, I'm not going to be lazing about, I already feel terrible.
Yeah.
Like, it's annoying when anyone else gets upgraded or promoted. It's a proud moment for the entire team.
Yeah.
But then, because it was a new job, it was like, you don't deserve that.
I think it's because it was so in relation to everything else. There's all these different levels. It's like a crew member, crew trainer, area leader.
Yeah.
If you're a crew member, say you're on minimum wage, crew member on minimum wage, crew trainer, you go up like 10 cent, go up again 10 cent, do cash, that's 10 cent. It's all like these 10 cent increments.
This was like $2.50.
Yeah, this was like $2.50 for being on lobby, which I think a lot of people viewed as like, oh, he's taking it easy, he's just out there fucking chilling.
That's what everyone else did. Everyone else was chilling when they were out there. But then, like, that's the thing again. Like, even like, it's so funny. This is the episode, because like, when other people went out there, they turned into zombies. Yeah, like they did. Yeah. Like, I think the most monotonous job is cleaning trays, and they were just standing there cleaning trays for hours on end, even though they were clean. Do you know what I mean? Not doing anything. And you go out there, and I think that, like, to this day, I deal with stress better because of the amount of stress I put on myself in that job. Yeah. I took on responsibility that I shouldn't have, and I did a lot more because I felt bad for getting paid more, which, wasn't a bad thing, because people would come out to lobby, and it was so great when people saw me on lobby and they went, I get it. this is why he's on a higher wage.
Yeah.
Because they'd see me whiz around and do everything.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole bottom floor, I don't know what the square footage of the bottom floor would be, but it was big. And of the whole restaurant, I can't even say how much more that would be.
Yeah.
But, it got to a point where towards the end of the night, in the morning, they come out and they do a deep, deep clean of the whole lobby.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't even have to.
Yeah.
Because I was all night, I was all day,
Yeah.
changing everything, and then using degreaser, using all this stuff to mop the floor in the free time that I had, rather than chilling, because I felt so bad about it.
Yeah.
And even on breaks sometimes, I'd even go a bit later, I'd do all this stuff that I needed to do.
Yeah.
To make people feel like that. But then other people that go out there, it's almost like, and this is why at the time as well, in my head, I'm like, geez, people just aren't thinking. There's no thought behind those eyes.
Yeah.
Because they get into work, and it's like, for me, maybe after an hour or so, I'll kind of go into this dip mode, and then I'll come back in because stuff's happening. I have to be aware all the time. Whereas other people are just gone. They get in, and the minute they finish putting their number in and they hit enter, they don't say a word.
It's all like muscle memory.
They're asleep.
Just,
yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, but I think McDonald's and those kind of like menial jobs are like a great kind of example of like, or a great place to go looking if you want to find zombie people.
Some zombie people.
But as much as I love talking about this, I think we should try and get it back on the rails slightly, just ever so slightly.
Absolutely,
because
we're gonna trim the fat out of that a lot, and we're gonna have more of the actual point in there that people came.
But I don't know. I think it was good.
I think philosophy, and they left with a Big Mac.
There was a lot of passion in it, and I liked that, and it did kind of relate.
Yeah.
So I think I'll leave it in. We'll see. All right. So here we go. Where back to where we were.
So what? We were talking about the smartest person that I know.
Oh yeah. We're talking about the smartest people we know and kind of what makes people smart. I guess as a way of better understanding minds and how they work and why some people have this belief, and stuff like that. So we went through this idea. Now, some better people than us, philosophers, and the such, have argued against why this idea of kind of zombie minds, it doesn't hold much water. That like the idea that I, from my perspective, am the only intelligent one, isn't very likely. So they say, this is called the arguments or the argument of analogy. So they say, if I do something like step on a thumbtack, something sharp, I'm gonna, go, oh, I'm gonna wince, and I'm gonna go, oh, and it's gonna be sore, and that's.
Okay, well, straight away we're different then, because I wouldn't, ooh.
you go, I don't know, like, because you're not gonna go, it's gonna be like
thumbtack.
Yeah, ooh, thumbtack. Have you ever stood on a thumbtack?
I have.
Was it like a ooh, and then you're off, or did it get stuck?
It was an ooh, and then I was off, because I think that in my mind I've lived standing on a thumbtack, and so like it's like as soon as that pain starts, the whole body, no matter what other call, like there could be a thumbtack and then swords around me.
Yeah.
And if I nearly stood on a thumbtack, I would nearly take it away and fall into the sword because I know that pain is going to be there. Do you know what I mean? Like your body doesn't think about everything else; it just goes pain, avoid it.
Avoid it. I stood on a thumbtack once. As you can see in my room, all the posters are now held up with blue tack, partly because of this. Because they used to be all thumbtacks. Stood on a thumbtack, but I don't know what I was like getting down off the bed, because like that when I like step on it, it's usually step and ooh, like your knee jerk reaction literally pulled your foot away because it's so sore. I stood on it, I went down, it stuck in my foot.
Oh my God.
And I lifted it up, and it was still there, so I had to like grab it and like pull it out. It was.
Do you ever get those things that get said, or you're watching something and you can feel like your stomach like tingle or something, like you can feel it in your stomach and in your thighs, and you're just like I don't know, it's not like a throwing up thing, but it's like you're already in pain. Or someone's about to prick you with something. It's that sort of a feeling.
I know. Yeah.
Like before you give blood, like.
I get that. Whenever, I don't know, there are certain things like I don't know, when like I see people talk about like legs bending weird ways and stuff like, where you just go like. But yeah, so standing thumbtack, I go and then that is followed by the sensation of pain. I feel that pain, but. As I said, better men than us, or better people, but in this case a man, Bertrand Russell, says that we can infer that if others act the way that we do, so if I step on a thumbtack, I go ow, and then I feel the pain. If I see you stepping on a thumbtack or something similarly small and sharp, and you say ow, and you appear to be in pain, it is logical to assume that we are feeling the same thing, and uh, and the same with anything, if I see something that's funny that makes me laugh, I feel the emotion of happiness, and you see something that makes you laugh, you feel the emotion, or you appear to feel the emotion of happiness, it makes sense to assume that that is what you're doing. Why kind of question it? It seems like it's kind of common sense, and we kind of just take it for granted that we have, or this is evidence of a similar, though not identical, but a similar kind of mind. That you do have a mind. Maybe it doesn't work exactly the same, but across the board, most people are going to react the same way to certain things when it comes to pain, fear, like anger, laughter, stimulus and emotions and obstacles and that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, so as I said, so many people take this for granted, that other people then have minds. Because it's not something you have to defend either. It's not something like there are other kind of philosophical ideas that kind of come up more, like the idea of like the brain and the vat, and I think it was last week I was talking about the end justifying the means, and you've heard that one where it's like there's a person tied to a track, and the train is gonna kill like three people if you do nothing, or if you pull the lever, it's going to kill one person. So these are things that people kind of tend to talk about a bit more, and they may not even realize that they're kind of dipping into philosophical ideas. Whereas this one is kind of left by the wayside. No one ever goes, do you ever think like, do other people have minds, or are they just like zombie people? So you don't really think about it that much. But if you were to defend it, you probably might say something like this idea of analogy that, well, I don't know, I can't read their mind, but I'm assuming because they react the same way to the same kind of things. The problem we come to with this argument of analogy, and this is its own little section, we call it the oyster problem. So we're going to talk a bit about philosophy, a bit about oysters, and we'll...
My two favorite things.
Yeah, we'll kind of go in between, because it's as much about philosophy as it is about oysters. So,
ew. I'd like to bypass this bit, please.
So, the problem with this argument is it's based on inference. So, you're inferring something, you've been giving a very limited kind of set of information, or one piece of information, in fact, is that I have a mind and I react to these things. I see you reacting the same way, so I infer, I assume that you are feeling the same thing. But then we compare it to finding an oyster. If you go onto a beach and find an oyster and it has a pearl inside it, you could use this same kind of inference and assume, well, if this oyster has a pearl in it, then all the other oysters must have pearls in them. But we know it's not true, because pearls are quite rare. Yeah, so, problem with the oysters, how do we fix it? Obviously, in this situation on the beach, you would just check more oysters to get a kind of a bigger pool of information, to kind of, or like statistics or whatever, to base your judgment on. You could just check them, and as soon as you check the others and you say, oh, they don't have oysters, that kind of gives you a better idea. We can't do this with minds, of course. We can't read them, which is kind of back to the same problem. We can't check others, especially even considering we don't even know how to prove our own mind's existence, as we kind of touched on earlier. But then, going back to the oysters, as I said, this is as much about oysters as it is about philosophy. If you were this person and you were trying to figure out the oysters, you can use reason to help your thinking. So we know a pearl serves no purpose to an oyster. There's no like functional, practical reason that the pearl forms in an oyster. It doesn't do anything for it. As well as that, we know that pearls are quite expensive. They're, people make jewelry out of them. So, knowing that they serve no purpose to the oyster itself, and that they are quite expensive, we can assume and reason that they must be quite rare. This gives more, I suppose, evidence to the fact that not all oysters will have pearls. We've reasoned this out. The problem, again, when we try and use this kind of critical thinking when it comes to the mind, is the mind is so mysterious. We don't even know what is relevant. We don't even know what the kind of right questions to be asking. So with a pearl, we can measure kind of against value, but what's the value of a mind? What's the function of a mind? Like, I mean, in practical sense, if we were kind of just vessels, we were just bodies with no minds, and we just operated on instinct, maybe that would be better. We'd just be kind of like cows grazing in a field. We wouldn't have to think about it. We would just eat, sleep, reproduce, and continue on. And maybe that would be more functional or more practical as a species than this kind of thought. And we know what thought does to people. It can do great things, but it can also do terrible things. I mean, not to get too heavy or anything, but like the example I'm thinking of is maybe like suicide or something. That's a direct result of having this. I feel like this kind of higher intelligence where you question things, and some people, when they don't find the answers to the questions, they can feel kind of hopeless. So you see, it's not very practical at all to have a mind in terms of prolonging existence.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be, sometimes it can't. So it's hard to measure that kind of stuff, like the worth of a mind. And this kind of brings us, I suppose, back around to the start, where it's very hard to look at it because there's still so much we don't know about the mind. So it's hard to know, even it's hard to know about our own mind before we can start looking at the minds of others, really.
Well, then, just to leave with this from the oyster problem as well, I think over the course of this, I've been considering the blissful unawareness of being a kind of a zombie mind. Because as you said about the, mental health and stuff, all of that is a direct correlation. Like, I mean, I don't know if there's anything in nature that has the ability to, like, kill itself and stuff like that, because I'm actually not sure. I need to look that up, but like...
Yeah, I know like lemmings throw themselves off a cliff, but I don't think it's due to any kind of emotional longing or like lack of self-worth or anything like that.
It's the crux of having intelligence is that you pay for it with the knowledge of your own mortality, the knowledge of life, and the knowledge of your success and who you are, who other people are. And it wouldn't be a totally alien thought for me to sometimes think, I wish I wasn't as aware, and sometimes I wish I wasn't as intelligent as I might be. That's that. I don't think saying I'm intelligent is like, it more just means like I'm not, like I know that I need to eat food to live. I know I need to exercise to stay fit, sleep to stay healthy.
Yeah, and you think about things. You put thought into things.
Exactly. And so with that, I sort of sometimes I'm a little bit jealous of, like, there's definitely people that I know in life who, and I think it's important kind of to be this way as well, where in your head you know that you're going to die, but you plan as if you're going to live forever.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit jealous of that because sometimes I find it hard to do.
Yeah.
Knowing that, tomorrow a meteor could hit Earth and we could all be gone. Yeah. It sort of makes it hard to self-motivate, being so aware of all the reasons I shouldn't self-motivate. So I guess that, there is, of course, it's priceless to have your own mind and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also, once you get to this state that I guess humans are at now, where it's also aware, and I wouldn't imagine it would be totally left field for someone to say, I wish I wasn't aware of so much that's going on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's interesting as well, you said, kind of like, because and not as like a slight to you or anything, but this is just the way we think, because we can only view the world from our perspective, and we talked to this about that before on the show in various episodes, but we can only view the world from our perspective. So it's natural to center yourself at the middle of it. And just what you said there kind of had me interested, because you were saying how you wish you weren't as intelligent as you were because you look at some other people and I guess it seems like they're not. I feel like that's almost a different kind of variant of this zombie thing where you're like, I'm feeling this way, but they're not. Yeah. And it's not even that you necessarily think, well, I'm so much smarter than them. It's just because you are living it from your perspective and you're seeing it and feeling the effects. And I think a lot of people hide that. I mean, if obviously we all get sad and we all get these kind of feelings, and for others, if definitely affects people kind of more, or they find it hard to cope and that kind of stuff. But I think like of the people who know you, I think of the people who know you well enough to, you're like quite a happy guy and you're quite a positive guy, but obviously you're a real person underneath and you do feel sad, and you have times where the world can kind of get to you the same as it gets to anyone. But as you take a step back to people who maybe don't know you as well, maybe people from work, and they just see kind of the outside, the front you put up, which is you're a happy, positive guy, and you're always on, you're always turned on. they might kind of think that way about you. They look at themselves and they go, I feel so sad. Why couldn't I be like Liam? He's living his best life. He's having a great
Yeah.
time. He doesn't think about these things. Um, when in actual fact you do. So it's kind of
Mm.
interesting. Like
Yeah.
I think that's
It's interesting, but it's also kind of nice, you know.
Yeah.
Like I like that there's people that I don't know if they're having dark thoughts or I know it's terrible to say. Like I know it's terrible to say I like that I don't know they're having a hard time,
Yeah.
but it gives me a sort of a slight model of something I want to try and feel a bit more like. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
if someone else seems to be feeling fine, even in the face of, you know, whatever situation could be facing us,
Yeah.
I am inspired by the I'm inspired by how much it feels like they're not taking it in.
Hmm.
You know, because even if they are, and even if it's the worst thing ever, and they're in the plunges of darkness right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
you know, looking at them makes me check in. You know, makes me go, "Am I taking this in too much?" You know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think in the world we live in today, there's so much emphasis on I suppose emotional respect and emotional awareness. And people say, don't hide your feelings, feel your feelings, and I think that is very good. And obviously, because of the opposite of that, where people kind of hid them away, um, there was a lot of kind of terrible things that happened because people couldn't share, and if they did, they might have been better. But I think getting caught up in this idea of like emotional awareness, I think there's something to be said about there is a certain kind of strength of you do feel these feelings. You're allowing yourself to feel sad and feel angry and feel down and depressed, but not letting it get to you. I'm not saying that because people do find trouble with motivation. There's nothing wrong with feeling this way, but there's also equally nothing wrong with admiring traits in other people where you can tell. And maybe this is a bit of something that we need to kind of take on in terms of social intelligence. Is that we are all the same people. We are all on the same level. So maybe we can safely say that everyone is having a hard time. So when you see someone who is kind of keeping it together and they have this kind of strength, there's nothing wrong with admiring it, you know, because maybe in front of you they have the strength and they keep it together, but when they get home they have someone who they can talk to. So it's not necessarily that they're hiding it, but they're kind of bearing it. And I think that can be kind of admirable.
Mm.
I think that's kind of bringing us around to the end of this. So to kind of wrap up, obviously, everyone, including the philosophers who kind of think of this kind of stuff, to function in everyday life, we just have to assume and take it for granted that everyone does have another mind. Like the people who came up with this stuff, they're not living their lives as a hermit. Like they are interacting, they're talking with people. I'm sure they have wives and children, and they don't, you know, they're not, I don't know, suspicious. They're not kind of like They don't think they're conspiring or anything. Um, but that's not the point. The point isn't exactly to prove that someone doesn't have a mind or that they're a zombie or that they're a mutant or whatever kind of variant, like even that we discussed. It's not to say, well, I'm right and you're wrong. It's more so, um, as we said with the oyster, the mind is so mysterious. No matter how far we've come in terms of technology, civilization, philosophy, all these different kind of fields of science and medicine, the human mind itself is still so mysterious and still has so many things that we just don't understand how it works. So posing these kind of questions just helps us understand. And I don't know. I mean, like just honestly, like I know you probably didn't know about this kind of idea. I mean, obviously you've not that you didn't know about the idea, like you've experienced it maybe without realizing, but after kind of putting it into words and kind of discussing it, I mean, do you feel like you have a different kind of understanding, or do you feel like you've learned something, or?
I feel like I feel like just same with this, same with your other podcasts as well. It's just sort of that
Mm.
you know it just gives me a deeper confidence in my own thoughts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like sometimes there's stuff that gets brought up and I go, oh, it's a nice new way of looking at that, but it just makes me very clued in
yeah,
to the reality that
yeah,
that is what's going on. And so with this one as well, I don't know if I've actively thought of other people. I'm sure that I have before
yeah,
thought of the idea of like maybe no one else is thinking the same way I am. Maybe no one else is thinking at all.
yeah,
But then going through it, and sometimes you need to challenge what you're thinking to be able to really say, I now think that.
yeah.
And so this is a perfect example of that.
It's good. Like, and I think that's kind of like a lost art. Is I guess I don't know what you call it, maybe like proof by contradiction or
Yes,
something like
yeah.
that if you feel a way about something, it's as important to, you have to support it with arguments for you, but bring arguments against you, and if it stands up against those arguments, then you can confidently kind
Yeah.
of go forward. And that's what I try and do, is try and kind of look at it from both sides. And obviously, I have my own feelings on certain things, but that's not for you, the listener. You're a big boy; you can make up your mind, or a big girl, or a big.
You're big.
You're big. You're huge.
Stop it.
Ah! No.
Someone's on a jog listening to this and they just started jogging a lot faster. He said that.
But no, like, yeah, no, it's important to have, I suppose, different opinions, different arguments, and that's something that just comes up. I feel like in every episode of this is, it's not about kind of right and wrong. It's not about this kind of way we have it looking at things of like, left and right and up and down, and it's this or it's that. It can be a scale, it can be a spectrum, it can be both things, or it can be neither.
Have a mind, use it, and challenge it.
Yeah, challenge it, and then, like you said, if you think you know something, think of, I don't know, arguments against it, and then if you do get into an argument about it, if you have like a certain opinion, you won't be afraid of it, because I think some people have opinions, but they're afraid of the argument because they know if it gets brought up, they don't have a rebuttal. Now, maybe that means you have to study up on it more so you can, or maybe that means if you can't justify it through argument, maybe you should kind of reevaluate your opinion.
Maybe you're not as hard fast on that as you thought you were.
Yeah, and then that's growth. That's like that's the fun bit. That's like where you get to look back and you say, I'm a different person today than I was yesterday, and I think the person I am today is better.
Yeah.
So hopefully by the time I'm 99 years old and all my best years are behind me, I'll be the perfect person, and then I can use it.
Oh my lord. Oh,
it's funny. That's just something I do think about, where I do have this kind of idea or this philosophy that I want to be better today than I was yesterday. So any mistakes I made yesterday, I will, I'll try and be better. I'm more or less the same person, but gradually, or like, generally speaking, I'm going to try and be better. And if that did work, if I got a little bit better every day, I mean, by the time I'm like 30, that'd be great. I'll be really well. But by the time I'm like 100, I'll be like that master. I'll be like,
yeah. By the time I am like 100, I will be so wise.
Yeah.
I will be able to put myself in something else and live forever.
But no one will listen to me because I'm
no
100 years old, man.
Actually, there's a thing called the brain in the vat.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about, Grandpa? Like,
stop having debates with me. I just want to chill.
Grandpa.
Grandpa's like, no. Why do you think that? Fight with me. And it's like, but you agree with me. I'm playing devil's advocate. Prove to me that you think that.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up. That's kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this very, very special edition, because we had a special guest.
And thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, we had Liam. So hopefully, maybe if we're very nice to him, we might come back again and talk sometime. And hey, look, if you like listening to this podcast, why not subscribe either on Acast or Spotify or TuneIn or iHeartRadio or whatever you choose to listen. Subscribe to me and follow me on Twitter at KennyD129. Let me know what you think, any suggestions, and then you can keep up to date on all the latest episodes, because I know you love them. I know you love listening to them. But yeah, look, thanks very much for listening, and see you again next time.
And you've nailed it.
Oh no, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, and
Hey.
oh no.